Hello, world. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Plugged In from YAA Electric. Today, we're talking all about the car behind me, my Ioniq 5, and we're going to see, do I like it? Do I not like it? What are the pros and cons? How does it compare to a Tesla and the other major competitors on the market? Do I regret my purchase? Or what would I do differently next time around? So I'm looking forward to chatting with you all today about the Ioniq 5 ownership experience. I've put 5,000 miles on the car. That's a lot of miles in just 2.5 months. And I've gained some insights. There's some things I love. There's some things I don't love. Justice, how are you doing today?
Good, good. Glad to be here.
What are the latest EVs you've seen around your hood? Besides Teslas,
Um,
because
I
they're
s-
everywhere.
I saw three Rivians yesterday, and it was the first time I've seen them out in the wild, and saw three of them at three different points. So that was really weird. And then lately, the last 2 weeks, I'd say I've been seeing Mirais everywhere, which really surprises me
See,
because
I've
we
never
only have
seen a Mirai.
four. Well, I don't think you have any hydrogen fuel stations. You would not likely see one.
Seen
They
them
would
on a
just be
trailer, I
bricks.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, we have four stations here in Sacramento now. So, but I was surprised to see those in the last 2 weeks all over.
I was pulling up at Electrify America on my way back from the beautiful state of North Carolina, and there was a station with 4 stalls. Three of the stalls were taken up by Hummer EVs. It was my first time seeing them. They were clearly doing some kind of delivery or pre delivery thing because they still had the protection tape on the front hood. But one of them was a Hummer SUV. And I'm not sure if they've started delivering those yet. I know they've been delivering the truck version, but the SUV did look better and more practical for a family. To me, it's still ridiculous just how gargantuan this truck is. I mean, if you're trying to go EV
Yeah,
for the environment, don't buy a Hummer EV. I mean, it's got a what, 220 kilowatt hour battery. That is 2.5 times bigger than my battery in my Ioniq 5. That's pretty wild. The efficiency is horrible
but it,
because you're driving a tank around.
yeah, I'd say it needs that battery because it's still a Hummer at the end of
Yeah,
the day, and
yeah.
everything that goes along with that.
Yes, indeed. I've been getting about 200 miles of range on the highway going 75 miles per hour in my Ioniq 5, but in the city, I've been pretty impressed lately. In the city, I've been getting closer to 280, 300 miles of range, real world, with my Ioniq 5. Now, I do about 60% of my driving in the city, 40% at speeds between 60 and 75 miles per hour. I feel like I'm starting to get used to the rhythms of EV ownership, understanding how to charge, where to charge. I mostly charge at home. Sometimes it's not enough, and that's when I have to make plans to go to a charging station. But I have noticed that for a lot of different driving lifestyles, the charging infrastructure is not nearly there to support EV ownership. And I've been speaking to other Ioniq 5 drivers and Kia EV6 drivers at Electrify America. A lot of them are pretty pissed with how the charging network has been performing for them. Many stations have been shutting down in the middle of a charging session. I've even gone to a few Electrify America stations that have had only half of the stalls functional, and then there's like a small wait list to get into the stalls that are working. So I would say that with my Ioniq 5 so far, I love the car. I love driving it around town and on the highway. It's super smooth and silent. A decent efficiency, not as good as a Tesla, but the charging infrastructure has been my greatest dislike so far. Usually I'm charging at home, but whenever it's time to hit the road, it does require quite a bit more thought and consideration to plan my trip. Now, Justice, with your Tesla experiences, is the charging infrastructure something that Tesla drivers stress about? Maybe it's for different reasons. Are there quite often wait uh, lines waiting to charge in California? What have you
So,
seen?
yeah, if you're going into the popular places, if you're going to downtown LA, yeah, there's going to be a wait. San Francisco, there's going to be a little bit of a wait. Um, the main thing I hear from Tesla owners now is if Tesla does open up their network to everybody, what's that wait going to look like then?
Yeah.
Because Tesla owners aren't used to, in general, waiting. You can usually find a spot. If it's not first generation, you can just pull in anywhere and charge up. First generation's frustrating when you get in there and the only spot is next to somebody else, so both of your charging speeds go down. Uh, but then, you know, I sort of look out at the Electrify Americas, and there's a lot more here. They have a much bigger infrastructure, but what I hear all the time is, well, those ones aren't working. Well, that one's not up to speed right now. There's so having the charger exist isn't really enough.
Hmm.
I mean, it needs to be working, and I would like to know. I would love to hear from them on what the fix on that is, because even in the early days of Tesla, granted there were a lot less vehicles, but they never had the kind of downtime that Electrify America seems to be having.
There's a lot of downtime, and I'll
And
I'll say that hanging out at an Electrify America station has a nice sense of community among the EV drivers, but not for the right reasons. There's a sense of community at every Electrify America station because you have to talk to each other and find out which stalls are working properly. No joke. I've noticed that people are always talking to each other, like, "Oh yeah, this one's acting a little bit weird. This one's not working." Yeah. So I bet, and I'm sure at Tesla superchargers, maybe it was like that back when you guys were the cool guys on the road 5 years ago. But now that everyone has a Tesla, it's just a charging station, right?
yeah, yeah, we you don't you get out of your car to plug it in, you get back in your car, you don't talk to anybody. So maybe we're losing a sense of community, I guess, just
You need
watching
those
Netflix or playing our games.
you need those charging stations to screw up every once in a while so you have a reason to talk to someone. Just
Yeah.
kidding, everyone. Just kidding. One thing that I love most about my Ionic 5 is for sure the charging speeds, because there have been countless occasions where I've been at a charging station, pulled in at maybe 15-20% state of charge, left at 80 to 85% state of charge just 20 or 25 minutes later. That's enough just to run into the gas station or Walmart, use the restroom, grab a snack, leave. 25 minutes max. And I've seen Volkswagen ID.4s parked there, only halfway through their charge in the same amount of time. I'm not even going to go into the older generations of Nissan Leafs and Bolts because they're going to be there for like 45 minutes to an hour, maybe more. I appreciate the charging speed of the Ionic 5, and I think that is something that EV adopters should really consider before they make a purchase. If you rarely ever travel, like hardly ever hit the highway, it does not matter as much for you. But if you take summer trips, maybe you just take 3 or 4 trips per year, you're going to want faster charging. Does it have to be 800-volt architecture that gives you 25-minute charge times like what you get in the Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, Porsche Taycan, and Tesla has fast charging. It's not 800-volt architecture, but it's fast charging. Um, it's kind of a sliding scale. Would you agree, Justice, that there's not like a group of poorly charging EVs and a group of great charging EVs? It's a sliding scale with lots of gray area in between. Like, for example, the ID.4 is kind of right in the middle. You're going to likely be at a charging station for 40 minutes. I think with the latest update in the 2023 ID.4, they've bumped it down to 29 minutes, which is a lot better. But it's a sliding scale where you've got some guys like the Mustang Mach-E and ID.4 in between the Bolts and the Ioniq 5s and Teslas. How important is charging infrastructure? I mean, sorry, charging speed in your experience, Justice?
Well, for me, I travel 4 times a year, about 700 miles one way. So it's very important to me. I need that infrastructure. I need the charging speed. I don't want to add, 2 hours onto my 6, 7 hour trip. Uh, However, the rest of the time when I'm not doing those trips, and most of the people I know, we don't even charge locally. We charge at home,
Yeah.
and you never go to a local charger because it's just never needed. So as you said, it really depends on lifestyle, what you do. My mother drives, I think, 6,000 miles a year.
Not bad.
So for her, she never goes on trips. She never goes. So, wouldn't matter to her. She plugs in at home all the time. So there's a big lifestyle component to it.
Now, in the chat here, we have Learning Fast, and he brought up a good point. The difference is that some Teslas are just so incredibly efficient that you don't need to charge as much. So that is
Yeah.
true. Teslas are more efficient than the Ioniq 5. That is a simple fact, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Another thing that I love about the Ioniq 5 is the styling. It's very strange seeing it parked in my driveway every day 2.5 months later. It's just like walking out the front door in the morning. I'm like, what is that's my car. That looks like a I don't know. It looks like something off of Back to the Future. But I do appreciate the styling, and I think that with the flexibility that electric powertrains give engineers in designing the architecture of the vehicle, we're going to see more and more concept cars come to reality because the batteries lay under the floor flat. The electric motor, if it's dual motor, you've got one in the front, one in the back, but each one's about the size of a duffel bag. It gives a lot more flexibility for how a vehicle can be designed, both interior and exterior design. And I love that facet of electrification. We're seeing concept cars make it to production. Uh, the Kia EV6, it's very different styling from the Ioniq 5, but it shares the same eGMP platform with 800-volt fast charging. The EV6, I kind of envy their range stats because it's more efficient. It has a lower drag coefficient. It sits a little bit lower to the ground. It's designed more for aerodynamics than the Ioniq 5. So one of my dislikes, it's just a trade-off. I love the styling, but the styling is not quite as aerodynamic as it could be. It's just one thing you have to live with when you have a cool looking car, I guess.
But with the EV6, I don't want to say not family friendly, but it's less family friendly than your Ionic 5. And with the family, that's the trade-off. It's the same as, are you going to get a BMW or a RAV4, right? I mean, you trade off when you have the family, you need things that fit. So I don't see that as much of an issue.
Yeah, and with my experiences, I feel like the Kia EV6's interior volume is kind of one notch below the Mustang Mach-E. Like the Mustang Mach-E was slightly less family oriented than my Ioniq 5 based on my test drive and just spending time in the back seat. However, the EV6 is just 10% less, in my opinion. Now, I should really look up these interior volume figures to see what I'm actually talking about here. But based on my anecdotal qualitative assessment, yeah, the Ioniq 5 is more of a family-friendly EV. It still drives pretty sporty though, with a 0 to 60 time of 5.2 seconds officially, but Motor Trend found it getting to 60 in 4.8 seconds. And I've never had a quick car, so I got to be careful. Don't burn through those tires too fast by slamming it into every corner. But it's fun. It's weird how
It's
with
fun the
electric.
first couple times.
Yeah. I don't abuse it every day now. It's like tires are expensive, especially if I want some
Yeah.
good tires that can handle the weight of the electric vehicle because it is about 4,500 pounds, and any vehicle that weighs that much is going to stress tires more. However, when you combine that weight with the instant torque, that's where you can really just eat away at the tires. Studies have shown, though, if you're light-footed and you drive efficiently with a heavy electric vehicle, you're not going to go through tires much quicker than just a normal combustion vehicle. It's all about how often you put the pedal to the metal. Yep.
Well, and for perspective, what the RAV4 Prime is 4,300 pounds.
Yes.
So, it's not that much of a difference. It's that instant torque, as you said. That's the real, combining it with that. That's where you can sort of ruin your tires quick.
Now, Justice, what do you think the main competitors to the Ionic 5 would be?
Mm, EV wise, or
Yeah,
or
let's
ICE
say
wise?
EV wise, and then we'll talk about ICE competitors because that's where the cost savings come into play.
Well, I mean, I think the obvious one would be the Model Y
Hmm.
in there,
The
and
EV6.
then EV6. Um, maybe I would say those would be the two main ones. But I'm not.
Yes, I'm looking up some figures for the 2023 Ioniq 5 because we have a viewer in the chat who is in Canada and placed an order for an Ioniq 5, and I know that they are allocating a sadly minuscule amount of vehicles for the Canadian market. It's really a shame. So let's see.
Well, with the cold, I can understand why that would not be clamoring up there.
So it looks like Hyundai has allocated, or at least they're telling their Canadian dealers that they've allocated roughly 1,000 Ioniq 5s for the 2023 model year to go to the Canadian market. So if you've got a reservation up in Canada, I would try to tease the truth out of your dealer and see what they have been told officially from Hyundai of North America, because I'm not surprised that you've been told to expect the car in 2024. But what I can say is you're likely to benefit from even just the tiniest of incremental range improvements by a 2024 model year. It's likely to come. Maybe the Ioniq 5 will be fully capable of over the air updates from home by then. Right now, you still have to go into the dealership for a software update. In fact, just yesterday, I finally took care of my software recall. Now, if you're not aware, the Ioniq 5 did have a recall pretty early on in production for the risk of rolling down a hill if a voltage fluctuation causes the parking brake just to release. That's terrifying. So I was parking with my parking brake on every single time that I parked in my driveway. That's a little bit of an inconvenience, but with an electric car, it's just like pressing a button, whatever. But yeah, took it to a Hyundai dealership yesterday, and I wish I could have taken care of that recall fix from home like you can with a Tesla recall. I did sit there for about an hour, even though they told me all they had to do was plug it into the computer, send a little update to fix that voltage fluctuation issue, and I'd be on my way. But you got to wait for other people in line ahead of you and all that. I do dislike how the Ioniq 5 was marketed as being over the air update capable, but it's not quite there yet. It technically is, but I guess the engineers are not quite ready to release its full capability yet. I would say that's a game changer for Tesla. Would you, Justice?
Yeah, I mean, I never took my Tesla in ever. I got
Yeah.
updates all the time. It was a constant update and not always for recalls. Sometimes you just wake up and you had more range or, more speed, and that was it. And that's a great feature of the Teslas, and I think is the future of all manufacturers.
Hmm.
Um, but the other thing about EVs, as you just said, that I find interesting is they all have a lot of tech in them that is not activated yet. All all of them. Tesla's included. There's all kinds of things they'll just push out someday that
Yep.
it's prepared for. So your vehicle in an EV over time can actually get better than when you bought it versus an ICE vehicle, which tends to just degrade. I love that feature of them.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now, John in the chat says, will they charge for software updates? I'm not sure. I think a lot of legacy automakers are thinking of software as a business and how in the future they could say, hey, if you want to lower your 0 to 60 time from 5.2 seconds to 4.8 seconds officially, pay us $200 or $500, whatever. But for now, one of the reasons I went with the Ioniq 5 is the 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. And of course, this was a recall fix. So they were not going to charge me for a recall fix. But I'm not terribly worried about the powertrain for the time being because of that 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty. This is the first generation of eGMP electric platform vehicles from Hyundai and Kia. So there is some uncertainty there, and I was aware of that going into it. But at least one thing that I love about the car is knowing that I've got that really, really solid warranty in my sales. And what I can say is that the Rivian is the only one with a better warranty besides the Tesla Model S and Model X. Pretty crazy. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, for Rivian, you just have to get them to build one
yeah,
to get that warranty. So there's the obstacle there. Um, but yeah, I mean, Hyundai has one of the best warranties out there, just overall. So good choice there.
I did meet a Rivian driver at the nearest Electrify America station who was about to drive into the unknown, aka a charging desert, because the Rivian has a EPA rated range of 314 miles, charged all the way to full, and was about to try to drive 300 miles on one charge because there were no chargers, no fast chargers. There were level 2 chargers, but there were no level 3 fast chargers for another 300 miles in this one direction that he was headed. I wonder if he made it. I wonder. I don't know. But,
Well, hopefully he found a level two if he didn't make it to the level three.
yeah, he did tell me he was gonna go about 65 on the highway, which around here is kinda slow. So, I wonder. Uh, Interesting voyage
He
indeed.
just needed the F-150 to come and charge him up then if he
Yeah.
ran out of juice.
Yes, for sure. I do love the build quality of the Ioniq 5. I can say to anyone who's had experience with, Teslas, "Don't get mad at me, Justice." I have seen it with my own eyes, in a number of vehicles, even some that I've test driven at Tesla service centers. That's where they had their test drives at where I lived. Um, you know, there were build quality issues, and I'm not talking about panel gaps because honestly, I don't care about the panel gaps. I noticed some things on the interior, like plastic that was kind of wiggly and things like that. I had a Nissan Altima in the past, and honestly, that car had those issues, but that was an Altima. So I
Yeah,
like how solidly built the Ioniq 5 is in the interior. There's no rattles. Everything is very purpose built, I can tell. And they've got the experience building those vehicles for decades and decades. So I can say that I'm happy with the build quality, but I do envy Tesla's supercharger network over the air update capabilities. I'm a fan of Tesla's styling. I've been surprised how many people don't they think the Model 3 and Model Y are ugly, but I think they look awesome. So I'm still a
I
fan of
think
that.
it's funny. People have gotten so used to the styling. When Teslas came out, it was like, oh, it looks weird. It's awkward, and now it's like, oh,
Yeah.
these are so boring. Everything looks like that. Well, yeah, because Tesla got popular. I mean,
And if you
to your point though, you forget the number one build quality on Tesla: road noise.
yes,
The road
yes.
noise is 1980s level road noise, and it is really annoying. It's my number one complaint about Tesla.
Yeah. And then when I test drove, especially the Model 3, I've driven the Performance, dual motor all-wheel drive, and the Model 3 particularly has a lot of road noise. I feel like the Model Y was a tad
Mhm.
bit better, more insulated, but the Ioniq 5 is very quiet inside. It's almost a safety hazard how it sounds the same going like 60 on the highway as it does going 80. Like it sounds the same. You have to actually be paying attention to know how fast you're going. You can't just judge it based on you know, your instincts. But I do appreciate that part about the build quality. Another thing I wanted to bring up was how the Ionic 5, I think it would look great sitting right next to a Cybertruck, don't you, Justice?
I mean,
Look at the
that's
styling.
hard. That's hard. It's a good looking vehicle, but next to a Cybertruck, it's maybe, I guess it's gonna be hard to look good next to a Cybertruck.
Uh, okay, okay. I think they have similar styling perspectives for sure.
They would pair together well, but I mean, who's gonna not look at the Cybertruck?
I do wish that I had a little bit better efficiency though, because whenever I've been on road trips, I've been needing to stop to charge for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, about every 180 to 200 miles. That works for me, but I'm thinking about the average driver. A lot of people are not going to be okay with that. It definitely fits my lifestyle because I've never been the kind of traveler to want to stop once every 4 or 5 hours. I like to stop, to use the restroom and move my legs once every 2 hours or so. But I wonder how the general public is going to respond to having to stop every 180 to 200 miles because that's true for a lot of EVs. Volkswagen ID4, Mustang Mach-E, um, Teslas can get probably 20% better than that. But let us know in the chat. Let us know in the comments. Do you think that being able to drive about 200 miles before you need to stop and charge, is that enough if charging times are in the 20 to 30-minute range? Or are you going to wait it out for maybe solid state batteries to bring you 10-minute charging times and 350, 400-mile ranges, which we already have that kind of range capability now in certain models, but it's not affordable. So let us know in the comments, what are your requirements? Fast charging, longer range, or both? Let us know.
It's going to
Just
depend where you're going and how excited you are to get there, right? I know when
yeah,
I'm
for sure.
heading to Orange County, I like to go in one shot. And then when I have to come back home, I can stop several times. It doesn't matter. I'm not in a hurry to come back home.
Now,
So it
Justice, do
just
you have any
depends.
questions for me? Any questions for me as a Tesla driver talking to an Ioniq 5 driver, which based on the sales stats, I think there's only about 7,000 of us in the United States, Ioniq 5 drivers. What do you want to know about the car or the experience?
Uh, my big one for you would be if the prices were the same, would you still choose Ioniq over Model Y? If the
Great,
prices were the same.
great question. And like incentives were the same or non-existent or whatever.
Yeah.
Level playing field, level
Yeah.
playing field. I would
Price
choose.
wise, level playing field.
I have an answer for you. I don't even have to think about this because I've thought about this long and hard many times. I would choose the Model Y.
Oh,
Is this like
well,
breaking news or
yeah,
something?
I am actually surprised. Why would you choose a Model Y?
There's only two reasons. I mean, I've thought about this a lot. Two reasons. Mostly the supercharger network. Like that's the big one. And then over the air update capabilities. If you were to ask me though, if you were to ask me, charging network was the same. Let's say we're talking the year 2030 and hopefully you've got reliable charging networks everywhere, not just the Tesla supercharger network. If charging networks were the same and the Ioniq 5 had actual from home over the air update capability, I would choose the Ioniq 5.
Okay,
But I
that's
live in
more what
I
I would expect. But yeah, that makes sense. And I hope Electrify America hears this because they
yes.
need to fix their networks.
Yes, we're on Instagram, everyone, and on Instagram, I've been
Yeah.
chatting with Electrify America's customer service representative and some of the comments on some of our posts because I've been pointing out how unreliable a lot of the regional stations in my area are, and it is going to affect EV adoption. But I live in West Virginia, and if I go north, northwest, or due west, the only chargers we have within 200 miles are Tesla superchargers, and there's actually quite a few of them. There's like 7 superchargers in that direction. Right now, I'm still waiting on the state of West Virginia to build a public fast charger at one of the rest stops. Otherwise, there are no Electrify America stations 200 miles in that direction. It's the last big whole charging desert on the East Coast is where I live. That alone would have driven me towards a Tesla Model Y. But I was looking at $62,000 with no incentives versus 56,000 with incentives, subtracting another 7,500. I do love the styling of the Ioniq 5, but it was really the incentives and the lower price that drove me in that direction. I'm a big Tesla fan, but wasn't going to pay that much money with no incentives.
And now it's even worse.
Yeah, now it's what, like 64,000?
Yeah, I think it's all 65. It's 64 something. Yeah, almost 65,000
And they're
for
not gonna
the
get cheaper anytime
cheap.
soon.
No,
I mean,
now Tesla is going to remain the expensive
yeah.
car for quite a while, I think.
Now, there are some Tesla Model Y news that I wanted to share. It topped the list from Cars.com's 2022 American Made Index. According to Cars.com's analysts, the Model Y is the most American made vehicle for sale in the United States. So, where the vehicle is made matters to a lot of consumers. If you're wanting to buy American made, go for Tesla because the Model 3 came in at one of the top five as well. Trying to find the numbers real quick. Model 3 was in second
And
place. Model X was in fifth, and Model S was in sixth place. Then behind that, we had several Honda branded vehicles, uh, filling in much of the other positions in the top 10 or 15.
so what's the difference in the say S and Y? Why is the S lower? Is that they're getting parts from somewhere else? What's the
Presumably
because they're all
so.
built here.
Presumably so. I don't know their methods, but I will link to it somewhere in the comments if you want to know about cars.com's survey. They did a bunch of research apparently because it looks like Automotive News, the industry leading news outlet, is giving this quite a bit of weight. So Teslas are highly American made, I guess.
Yeah, like Ford is built mainly in Mexico and Canada, right? They got some
Yeah.
here, but
The Mustang
then
Mach E.
Toyota gets a lot of their parts from overseas.
Yeah, which by the way, this list from cars.com, it was not just EVs, it was all 376 vehicles, light duty vehicles, models sold in the United States. So pretty interesting. But the Mustang Mach E is built in Mexico. I know that
Yeah,
Ford is building Blue Oval City in Tennessee, our Blue Oval factory, and they're going to start building the F-150 Lightning and other electric vehicles in Tennessee, which is just down the road from me. The southeastern United States is really becoming a hub for electric vehicle
yeah, it is.
supply chains and manufacturing. We've got Rivian in Georgia. Hyundai recently announced that they're going to be building Ioniq 5s in the future in just a few years in Savannah, Georgia. VinFast is building a factory in North Carolina. So this whole region that I live in is somehow becoming an electric vehicle hub. I think it's great for the regional economy.
Hopefully, they get more chargers in there. Then
Yeah,
if they're going to be building them there, you'd hope some infrastructure comes with that.
a lot more chargers because this
Yeah,
past weekend was somewhat of a holiday weekend when it comes to travel. It's not Memorial Day weekend as far as travel volume, but I went by two chargers on my way to North Carolina that were both full, one in Statesville and one in Wytheville, which Wytheville's in Virginia. But seeing full chargers on a minor travel holiday was concerning for the future because we should be at the point where we don't want everyone to go buy an EV right now because infrastructure is not nearly ready for that. I mean,
yeah.
maybe in 2025, but not right now. Or I'm
Well,
just not
even
not going to travel.
once we get all the chargers in there, we still have an electricity problem.
Yes,
There's
yes, indeed.
still an electric generation problem. So there's a lot of obstacles to still overcome. I don't think 2030 is very realistic still. I think
Yes.
we're going to need a lot more time to get the infrastructure there. The cars might be ready, but the infrastructure is not. Unless the government somehow demands that all these OEMs that are moving and building all their factories also start building the charging network. That's what Tesla did. They built their own.
Mhm.
So if each of these OEMs started building these networks, maybe we could get there faster.
Yeah, it's fascinating because just to touch on it lightly, the way the electrical grid issues are mostly concerned, it's because grid operators are used to there being peak demand in the afternoon and then the least amount of demand on the grid in the middle of the night. Well, if we all go electric and charge at home overnight like I do, that's not going to be the case. You're going to have quite a bit of demand in the middle of the night. So that's just going to be requiring a bunch of planning, allocating grid capabilities. For example, I'm pulling about
And
1.4 kilowatts all night, and that's quite a difference from where my electrical needs used to be.
but don't you think electricity storage is really the part of the answer there? Because right now we don't store
It's
it,
a
right?
it's a
We
big
just
part of the
produce it
answer.
and send it out. And we have to start building these battery plants to charge up, so there isn't ever a peak demand. There's just always a constant flow to store this electricity. It needs to, I think that's the first solution.
Yeah, we need a smart grid. True,
Yeah.
true. Wow, awesome. Well, Justice, thank you so much for joining me today to chat about the Ioniq 5. It's a great car. It's not perfect, but I love it. I mean, it's a good car. It's about as great as I could have expected from Hyundai's first mainstream electric vehicle beyond the Kona. So, thank you so much, Justice, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Uh, let's see,
I-
Friday. Would you be able to join me Friday? We could talk about
yeah.
some EV news.
I would be happy to be here on Friday. Always love being here.
We can talk about how unaffordable the Hummer EV has become.
We can talk about how unaffordable Tesla has become.
Yeah, sad, sad. Okay, well,
Yeah.
everyone, have a great Wednesday. Be sure to check us out on Instagram too, because I am now posting on there every day, and I'm finding plenty of things out at the electric vehicle charging stations to post about, including some really insane electric vehicles that I've come across, and I look forward to sharing that all with you. Subscribe,
And
like the video, please. Yes,
how do
Justice?
we find you on Instagram?
Yes,
What's
YAA
the
Electric. Yes, YAA Electric. You'll see us with the big blue logo. Um, yeah, I saw a Model 3 the other day with custom white arrow rims that to me just look disgusting, but I want to know what others think. Approaching it with an open mind. Yeah, check us out on Instagram. Please subscribe to this channel because we're going to be bringing more and more content for you, including our released edited videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So looking forward to those. See you next time. See you Friday, Justice.
See you Friday. Bye, everybody.